A second thing I think we need to understand is submission does not imply inferiority. God doesn't say this person should submit to this person or these people or this institution because they're inferior. He doesn't say that at all. In fact, it's interesting. We're to submit to governmental authorities. Does that mean our politicians are superior to us? The answer is no. How about this? God the Son submitted to God the Father. Is Jesus inferior to the Father? No. Submission has nothing to do with inherent worth, dignity, inferiority, superiority. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. And here's a fascinating one. There are times that husbands need to submit to their wives. Famous passage of Scripture, parallel to the one we're looking at in Corinthians. Ephesians 5, verse 22. It says, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. Basically saying the same thing. But what's fascinating about that verse is the word submission isn't even in the verse. All that verse says in the original language is, and wives to your husband, as to the Lord. Word submission not even in it. You know where they get that idea of submission? It's in the verse before. And the verse before says this, submit to one another out of reverence for Jesus. It's a call for mutual submission, to know when it is that the right thing to do is to submit to someone else. And in the context of mutual submission, God is reminding wives to practice that principle when it's appropriate in their homes. So why would God come here and go, okay, here's the one thing you need to know. Wives, submit to your husbands. I mean, every wife is going, God, why did you pick that one out? Seriously. That's irritating. Well, you remember how men have a tendency to view women as objects? And to counteract that, you need love. Get this. Women tend to view men as projects. Didn't know we knew that about you, did you? As projects that need to be fixed. I love that line in Jerry Maguire, where the Renee Zellweger character is falling in love with the Tom Cruise character. And she says this, she says, I love him for the man he wants to be and for the man he almost is. That's about right. Where did women get this? Ready for this? Brace yourself. It came from God. Rewind button all the way back to the genesis of the human race. God creates humans, male and female humans. And remember when he created the female human? Remember when he created a woman? God looked around, well, God already knew. He was kind of pointing out to Adam, you know what? Everybody's got a mate out there. Every other creature out there has something like them, only far more attractive. And you don't. And so God goes, I'm going to create a woman. I'm going to create a suitable helper to complete you. And create a woman. And there is something inherent. Different degrees, absolutely. But there is something inherent in feminine nature in a woman that will look at a man and says, I need to help you. You need things about you that need to be fixed. You've got some things, if you did better, your life would go better. They see it. They get it. And it came from God. It's a beautiful and wonderful gift. Unfortunately, women are fallen just like men. And so that wonderful, beautiful gift that is intended to bless and make two people closer and move through the world better kind of gets messed up. And before you know it, they're looking at that husband that needs to get fixed. And they're looking at those things and they use them to belittle their husbands, to diminish them. And so they do things like nag, complain, make unfair comparisons. Why can't you be like? To gripe. to fault find. And do you know how a husband internalizes that? They are always resentful. Sometimes on the outside, they look like, oh yeah, I know, and they may comply, but there is a resentment that builds up. And sometimes it isn't just on the inside, it's on the outside, and they dig in their heels, and they begin to fight, and they get really stubborn, and all sorts of things break loose. It gets ugly. And it's one of the contributing factors, it's one of the tributaries to a marital relationship that causes some men after a while to just walk. So God comes and says, okay, because I know men tend to objectify, men love. And because women tend to look at it not as objects, but as projects that want to fix, but they go twist it up and it ends up belittling, God goes, submit, wives. Do you know what the essence of submission is? The essence of submission means this. It means to get behind someone. It means to back. It's actually, the original term was a military term. And it referred to soldiers getting behind their leader on the battlefield to support his actions, his strategies, his initiatives, because the soldiers realize that we've got to work together, and if we back this person, we've got the best chance of being successful. That is always why God calls anyone to submit in any area of life, because you need to back somebody. And if we're backing that person and working off the same set of plans, they've got a better chance for the whole thing to succeed. It's why we're called upon to submit to governmental authorities. Now here's what I know. A little less than half the people in America did not vote for the man who's about to be inaugurated as president. And you may have all sorts of reasons for not voting for that particular individual. But here's what God says. Now that he is the president, back him. Literally, submit to the governing authorities. Back him. Because here's the deal. If Barack Obama succeeds, we all win. It does not mean that we are going to see eye to eye on all the issues. It does not mean that there might not be differences of value. Here's what it means. We're all in this together. And you need to back the guy to give us the best chance to succeed. And then 4 years from now, we get to decide whether that was a good choice, bad choice, and where we're going to go from there. And what God is doing is he's coming to wives and saying, I gave you this great gift to be able to look at somebody and kind of know how they can fix and be better, and you want to do that, but it kind of gets gunked up, so to make sure you're doing it right, just listen, wives, back your husbands. So here, okay, inside information on guys. When a man is believed in and he knows it, when he's backed and he knows it, he has a much easier time listening to the things that he needs to fix. Way easier. So God just comes and says, okay, here's the deal. Seriously, do one thing, you do the one thing, amazing what it does in the home. Man, don't look at women as objects. Love your wives. Wives, don't just look at your men as projects. Back your husbands. Amazing what that does to the currents in a marital relationship. But you know, in most homes, it's not just a husband and a wife. In most homes, there are little human beings that populate it. And you got family. And that's a big part of the happiness of a home life. So what God does is, okay, now that we got the husband and wife thing, you know, kind of the one thing they need to do, now let's talk about parents, the one thing they need to do, and then kids, the one thing that they need to do.